Welcome back to the Studio Chronicles. Today we're standing in the shadow of one of the most iconic structures ever built, the Roman Colosseum. You've seen it on magazine covers, you've walked past it in video games, but what if I told you the version of this building you know is just the polished surface? Underneath the grandeur, the Colosseum holds 5 dark, disturbing secrets that history class never bothered to mention. So buckle up, because ancient Rome was far more brutal than you were taught. Fact 1. The death toll was industrial, and that was the point. Most people know gladiators fought in the Colosseum. What most people don't realize is the sheer calculated scale of the slaughter. At the inauguration games alone, held by Emperor Titus in 80 AD, historians estimate that over 9,000 animals were killed across 100 days of celebration. 9,000. To put that in perspective, that's more animals than most modern zoos house. Wiped out in just over 3 months, purely for applause. And it wasn't just a numbers game. The Romans were obsessed with novelty. Emperors competed to outdo one another with more exotic kills. Lions, elephants, rhinos, hippos, even bears imported from the furthest reaches of the empire. Some species were driven to regional extinction directly because of this demand. This wasn't accidental entertainment, it was a deliberate political tool. Bread and circuses, designed to keep the masses distracted, loyal, and in awe of imperial power. Fact 2. The Colosseum had a dark underground, literally. Beneath the sand floor of the Colosseum lay an elaborate labyrinth called the Hypogeum, a 2-level underground complex of tunnels, cages, and mechanical lifts that the audience above never saw. Prisoners, slaves, condemned criminals, and animals were held down there, sometimes for days, in total darkness, listening to the roar of the crowd above them. When the moment came, they'd be hauled up through trapdoors directly into the arena. No warning, no preparation, just light, noise, and a fight to the death. There were over 80 trapdoors built into the floor. Entire elaborate set, trees, fake landscapes, even small buildings, could be assembled underground and then raised up to create theatrical spectacles mid-show. The Romans didn't just stage fights, they staged experiences, and the suffering down below was as much a part of the machine as the cheering above. Fact 3. Executions were entertainment, and the crowd loved it. Gladiatorial combat gets all the attention. But there was another class of entertainment at the Colosseum that historians often gloss over: public executions called damnatio ad bestias, or condemnation to beasts. Criminals, prisoners of war, and, notoriously, early Christians were thrown into the arena unarmed and left to be mauled by lions, bears, or leopards. And these weren't quick deaths. They were designed to be prolonged, theatrical. Sometimes the condemned were dressed in costumes to reenact mythological scenes, turning their suffering into a kind of sick living theater. These executions were typically held at midday, when the serious gladiator fans took their lunch breaks, suggesting that even the Romans viewed them as a lower, more disposable form of entertainment. Meaning, what we'd consider an atrocity was just the intermission act. Fact 4. Gladiators weren't always brave volunteers. Pop culture loves the image of the proud gladiator, the warrior who chose the arena, who fought for glory and honor. And yes, some gladiators did choose the life. But the dark reality is that the majority had no choice at all. The gladiatorial system was built on a foundation of slavery, debt, and military conquest. Captured prisoners of war, Gauls, Nubians, Britons, Germanic tribesmen, were enslaved and forced into training schools called ludi, where they were treated as valuable property. Not people, property. Gladiator owners, called lanistas, were among the most despised figures in Roman society, considered morally equivalent to pimps. And yet, the system they ran was one of the most lucrative businesses in the empire. The gladiators themselves? Their mortality rates varied by era and style, but estimates suggest that in the early imperial period, fighters had roughly a 1 in 5 chance of dying in any given bout. That's not a sport. That's a coin flip on your life, with someone else holding the coin. Fact 5. The Colosseum was built on the ruins of Nero's vanity. Here's the one that almost nobody talks about. The Colosseum wasn't built on empty land. It was built on top of the private pleasure lake of Emperor Nero, the man who, by most historical accounts, fiddled while Rome burned and used the Great Fire of 64 AD as an excuse to seize massive swaths of the city for his personal mega palace, the Domus Aurea. When Nero was overthrown and the Flavian dynasty took power, Emperor Vespasian made a very deliberate political statement. He drained Nero's private lake and gave the land back to the people in the form of a massive public arena. The Colosseum's official name, the Flavian Amphitheater, was essentially PR for a regime change. So the very monument we celebrate as a wonder of the ancient world was born from political spin, built by slaves, funded by the looting of Jerusalem, and consecrated in rivers of blood. The Colosseum isn't just an architectural marvel, it's a monument to power, and everything power is willing to do to keep itself. History is never just dates and monuments, it's always the story of people who had power, who didn't, and what that meant for the ones caught in the middle. If this video made you see the Colosseum differently, that's the point. The Studio Chronicles exists to do exactly that. If you want more stories like this one, hit that subscribe button and ring the bell so you never miss an episode. Drop your thoughts in the comments. I want to know, which of these facts hit you the hardest? Until next time, I'll see you in the next one.